again. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. I'm not going to ask you your favourite drink because we know you don't like hot drinks really, but I do want to know about your mug. Tell me about your mug.
I actually painted this myself. There's a little pottery painting place in my town. I actually saw this on the shelf. Someone else had done one before me in a green. So I copied their idea, but did a pink one.
I also love how it matches your nails, by the way. I don't know if that was intentional.
No, that wasn't intentional. I literally got them done this morning. What's on your mug?
Mine, I think you'll appreciate, is insults, Shakespearean insults.
I do love that. I feel like that would be such a good one for me to have.
I have. So my favourite is "You lump of foul deformity." Do you know where that's from?
I feel like that's Richard III because we've just done that with year 8. I think that's from. Yeah.
Well, I'll be saving that one. I like that. So we're back today. We've already chatted about Careers Week, which a few months ago, but you are the queen of transition. You've worked in both secondary and primary schools, which is just giving you an amazing experience of the transition. So you've written this blog for us, which has got 5 ideas for transition from year 6 to year 7. So if you go look at the blog, Emily has provided all these resources for free, which is amazing. So you've got a transition pack in there, year 7 ready lessons, a secondary timetable week, something called year 6.5, which I really like the name of, and then obviously Careers Week, which we've talked about in way more detail before. So hopefully people will read that blog. It's got some amazing resources in it. But have you got a particular personal story of a class or a child that has been positively impacted by these transition activities?
Yeah, so the first class that I started doing all of this with was actually before I went into secondary. We did the secondary week, we did the transition pack, and we did do the Careers Week, but so that was separate. They actually came back to see me once they'd gone into year 7 to tell me that they felt like they were the most prepared children there. And they said that because they'd done the secondary week in primary, that they already knew about timetables. They already felt they understood more about when they would get detentions. They felt they understood more about just sort of how secondary works. And that was really, really great. They also, incidentally, were the first year group we had where the secondary came and did the 6.5 lesson in October. And he came and talked them through how secondary would be and did a secondary style lesson for them. And we did the whole year where they were 6.5. So they did have the same rules about the toilet as they would have at secondary. They did have the same rules of, well, if you haven't brought your PE kit in, there will be, a consequence. It was actually saying, my mum didn't pack it. When you're 10 and 11, you can pick up your own kit. And they all came back and said they were genuinely grateful. They were like, we really are genuinely thankful you did that for us because we feel so much more prepared going up. And that kind of set me on the track of doing more.
Yeah, it makes them feel grown up, doesn't it? Being treated like year 7 while they're still in year 6, and they get to kind of practice these rules in a sort of jokey, informal way before they're actually going to be implemented when they're in year 7.
Yeah.
So some of the activities are great, but I can imagine it's a bit of a logistical nightmare. You've got to get other people really on board. So what are any challenges you've come across when implementing some of these?
The biggest challenge, I think, was definitely the secondary week. When I first had the idea, everyone, because essentially what it involves is every teacher taking the children either in their classroom or coming to the year 6 classroom to lead a subject which they were experts on. So I didn't pigeonhole anybody. I said, you can teach what you want. If they have 4 maths lessons, fine. If they have 3 history, fine. I just wanted them to feel comfortable. But getting people to have the confidence to do it. So our reception teacher, for example, had to come up and teach year 6. We haven't done before, but in return, I actually went down to all of their classes and covered them for an hour. So I pointed out, yes, she was coming up to year 6, but I was going to have to go down to reception, which for me was
brave.
Different world. Yeah, exactly. And in the end, once people saw how it was going to work and how they were going to be covered, and they saw it as a fun hour really to just give themselves some CPD, it was really successful. And after we did the first one, people were on board after that because they could see the impact that it made. Actually, the reception kids loved having a different teacher. Year 1 loved going up to the year 6 classroom for a little bit, so year 6 could be in their classroom. It was great, but it was a challenge definitely getting people on board with it to start with because it was something they hadn't heard of before.
Yeah,
they saw it as a challenge for themselves as well, I guess. But yeah, it was an easy sell once they could see the impact it would have.
Yeah, I suppose as well, you've got teachers that especially if they've never taught year six, they don't see it as affecting them. But once they can see how positively it can affect all the children once they get to year six, then you get everyone on board. So have you ever used sort of peer connections between secondary and primary? So using children from secondary to come and communicate with the primary children or anything like that?
So when we did the 6.5 lesson, the secondary actually brought some children to our school. They couldn't bring children from our school that had been there previously because it was our first year six cohort. We were a new school, but they brought some children back, and that really helped as well to have a bit of people voice. And also when I worked in secondary, all of our year sevens, as soon as the March deadline had passed and people knew what schools they were going to, all of our year sevens actually wrote cards to children in year six.
Oh, I love that.
They got sent in March, and some of the children we tried to pair up where if they were, for example, a child that had come completely on their own, we tried to pair them up with someone else who was coming completely on their own because it was a bit of a unique experience. But mostly it was just so they felt like they had a buddy or a friend before they already came up, and that was genuinely lovely. I would definitely do that again.
Okay, so you've worked across both sectors, so Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 3, which has obviously given you so much experience and knowledge in this. So what do you think each sector could learn from each other about the transition from primary to secondary?
I definitely think secondary schools kind of underestimate where year six are actually when they come up. I think because they are the babies of secondary school, they are often seen as quite young, quite immature, which compared to some of the other children in secondary, they are, but actually they're so independent by the time they leave year six. They're so capable. The work that they can do, I think, is so underestimated. And I think that could definitely be learned from. Like, I would encourage secondary teachers who teach year seven to actually go to primaries and watch them. I think that's really, really beneficial. And actually, the same for year six teachers. I think going to see your secondary colleagues is really useful because actually, our children are fairly independent by the time that they get up to year six, but of their own making, I think. I think actually, as teachers, we can encourage more independence with them. Even children, for example, who've got a one-to-one, because they often don't have that when they go to secondary or they have a period without it. So I had children that have a one-to-one, and I obviously didn't take that away when they needed it. But actually, they did take more of a step back and leave the child to have a little bit more freedom, a little bit more independence. And again, that really helps them going up. So I think in year six, it would be how we create independent children. And in year seven, it could be knowing what the children are capable of before they go
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, no, interesting. Okay, so lastly, if you could change one common perception about the transition from primary to secondary, what would it be?
I think it's that once they leave year six, they're ready for secondary. Because I think over the secondary break, the 6-week break, I mean, I know it takes me a lot to get back into the routine in school. And I did looked at a piece of research that said that there's like a 40% dip during the summer. And I think there and so I think because they have that 6-week break and you're going to not only like a new class, is a new school, is a new set of rules, actually that 40% dip is quite big. And I think just because they leave year six in one manner doesn't mean they're always ready for seven. And I think the perception often is they're ready for secondary, they're leaving year six, and then they arrive and they should know they've had this transition in July. They should know what to do in September. They're not going to because they've had 6 weeks off. And we've seen the effect that has through primary. We've seen the effect it has, between the summers and secondary. Why would it be the same when they're in year seven? And I think actually the biggest perception is that they are not going to be in the same place when they come back.
Yeah, I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but trying to see it from Key Stage 3 teachers' point of view, going with the academics drop thing, not only if you've got the 6-week drop, but if you cram until SATs and then, for example, you don't really teach maths again after SATs because you just want to relax, that's like up to 3 months of no maths. So they're gonna forget stuff. It's not really the kids' fault. And then sometimes you're not surprised when year seven teachers are saying, well, how could they possibly have got this in their SATs because they haven't done it for so long? So do you think that's possibly true as well?
And I have to say, when I got into secondary, when I went back into year six, I was a lot more strict about what I did post SATs. And I made sure they were doing some daily arithmetic just to keep at all times tables. Like I did actually build it in a lot more than I'd bothered to do before because probably a perception as well that in year six, we all know all the stuff that goes on at the end of year 6, and it is busy, but I do think keeping those key skills ticking over are really, really important.
Yeah.
Because, I've had secondary teachers say, oh, they don't even know how to use a ruler when they come up. They mustn't have been taught that. I have to say, I think teachers need to be careful of what they blame on each other during the class. No, we do teach them how to use a ruler. We do teach them how to turn a page. That isn't the teachers.
Yeah.
But they do have this huge dip, and actually I think we need to be more mindful in that summer term of what we're doing with them.
Yeah.
Because that is all part of the transition. Like you said, if they're not doing maths for 3 months and then they're going straight into year 7 maths, it's not giving them the best start to secondary.
Yeah. I mean, there's also a blog in the guide I wrote about year 6 maths after SATs, because you see so many people on socials, don't you, going, what are you doing in maths after SATs? And I think my first point is continue, unless they've all got 100% in SATs, try and continue with the curriculum and plug in gaps. Like, obviously it's a good opportunity to address things like financial literacy and other areas in maths that you haven't got to explore yet. But like you say, it's so important to keep that ticking over, because you don't want them going to secondary school not actually prepared for Key Stage 3 maths.
Well, yeah, and speak to the Key Stage 3 lead at your, even one feeder school, because they'll all have the same problem, and say, what is it that you find children don't know most when they come up? Because I know from working in secondary that science and maths all say that graphs are a problem. And again, we done quite light these, aren't they, in primary? We teach them a week, maybe 2 a year, and then that's it. But actually, they're key in science and key in maths when they come up. So ask your secondary, what areas in maths do you think they need to work on? Again, there's your summer curriculum. Just keep building in the stuff they need.
Yeah. Well, we could talk about this forever. So let's stop. It's lovely chatting to you, and thanks for coming back on.
Annie, thank you so much for having me.